In the Premier Class this season, Pecco Bagnaia, after a frustrating sprint yesterday, the reigning world champion, saw his title lead shrink to 27 points ahead of this 20-lap British Grand Prix coming your way in just over 40 minutes' time. But as we spent the majority of this weekend, it is all eyes on the sky. Just a few moments before our live coverage started of the build-up to this British Grand Prix, there were a few spots of rain starting to fall around the paddock and this 5.9 kilometre humongous Silverstone Motorsport complex. It's Matt Burt, Lewis Sotheby in the commentary box with Simon Crafar down in pit lane to bring you all the race coverage here at Silverstone. We've all just about caught our breath after what was a sensational return from the summer break in Moto3. Don't worry, no spoilers here, but if you didn't catch the race day kickoff here in Moto3, trust me, rest assured you are going to want to watch it, because it was 15 laps of utter brilliant, sensational handlebar to handlebar racing. For now though, we focus on MotoGP. This was on Friday. Pecco Bagnaia and Enea Bastianini, actually was yesterday. This was Bagnaia limping home in a bitterly disappointing 14th place in the sprint. The first time the 26-year-old Italian has missed points on a Saturday. He was very bemused, very baffled. Having a look there at his front and his rear tyre, clearly did not have the grip he wanted. Said he was in trouble from the warm-up lap of that 10-lap Tissot sprint yesterday. And what that meant, the race win in the sprint went to Alex Marquez, the 5th different sprint winner of 2023. But another good Saturday for Marco Bezzecchi. Pole position on the Muni VR46 Ducati, second to Marquez in the sprint. And 27 points now Bezzecchi sits in the World Championship.
Speaking of poor sprints yesterday, Marc Marquez had another shocker. Unfortunately, it's been the story of 2023 for Marc Marquez. There have been a number of disappointing afternoons for him, and this was unfortunately another to find that category. You could see him there looking behind him as he came through Stowe Corner. As soon as Marc Marquez realised that points were not going to be a possibility for him, he essentially changed from race mode to test mode and decided to slot in behind his teammate Joan Mir to get as much information as he could. There it is, right on cue as he led his teammate through. It's sad, isn't it, unfortunately, to see Marc Marquez racing with that kind of approach, but unfortunately, given the situation they here on the Honda are in, that was the best approach that Marc Marquez thought it was to take. He came across the line in yesterday's sprint down in 18th position. The only consolation for him is that his brother Alex took the victory.
Yeah, one half of the Marquez family was certainly happy, weren't they, in the Silverstone paddock here last night, with Alex Marquez hanging on to his first Tissot sprint win. Some late words of encouragement, embraces from his family as well as Marco Bezzecchi, who kicked off this British Grand Prix here on a dry Friday, topping the opening practice session. He had a nasty high side though on a cold tyre going through Luffield in free practice 2 on Friday. And then there was another crash yesterday, just seconds on the very next lap after he set the pole time. He didn't actually realise he'd taken pole position. He carried on thinking he still need to find more time. Didn't see his pit board because of a misted up, fogged up windscreen. And what happened was, pushing hard on that final lap, he had another high-speed crash at Vale, so he'll be a little bit battered and bruised, Lewis, nursing a couple of bumps and scrapes, but when he's been upright and on board that GP22, Marco Bezzecchi has looked absolute class. 2 wins and 4 podiums in the first 8 Grand Prix, 4 sprints now for Marco Bezzecchi. No question, he is here to stay in that championship fight.
Certainly is. Quickest in free practice 1 on Friday morning, was quickest in practice on Friday afternoon until he had that first of the 2 crashes you referenced, that big high side on a cold tyre at Luffield on Friday afternoon. Front row of the grid, was chasing hard, wasn't he, on the final lap of the sprint yesterday to try and close down Alex Marquez. Just fell short by 0.3 of a second, but many are looking at Bez as the pre-race favourite, and if he can convert that status into 25 points, it would close what is already a closing, narrowing gap in the World Championship. 27 points behind Pecco Bagnaia. Bezzecchi could reduce that even further if he converts what is no doubt a potential for victory into the 25 points later on.
The Red Bull KTM Factory Racing team are certainly not lacking support here at Silverstone. I can just see on the exit of the club corner a pocket of the Orange Army, who will be out in full force, won't they, in 2 weeks' time at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, where there is a KTM dedicated grandstand which will be packed full of 10,000 orange-clad fans. I've seen lots of Miller 43 flags here. Certainly a lot of support for Brad Binder as well. The pair of them slowed, though, somewhat in the sprint yesterday by a lack of rear grip, particular drive grip. Brad Binder had massive wheel spin launching off the line for that 10-lap sprint and dropped almost to the back of the field. It didn't do his former KTM teammate Miguel Oliveira any favours either. In fact, the Portuguese rider Oliveira on that Crypto Data RNF machine had one of the better rides in that Tissot sprint yesterday. The early melee, the early mayhem dropped the 28-year-old back to 20th place, Oliveira, and there was nobody DNF'd in that sprint yesterday. He was able to fight his way through to 10th place in just 10 laps, and he feels like he's got good race pace here this afternoon. So yeah, keep a close on Oliveira now, of course, close to full fitness after all of his early season injury woes.
It's Fabio Di Gianantonio stops for a photograph with one of the British fans who's popped into Silverstone to watch the Grand Prix here this afternoon. Perhaps the big unknown, as Matt mentioned at the top of the broadcast coming into this Grand Prix, is the weather. Spots of rain were falling around about 10 minutes ago. We do understand that there is the possibility for some rain around 10 minutes before the British Grand Prix gets underway. There is a small weather front on its way through, which could bring rain at around 10 to the hour. So we could still have rain affect this British Grand Prix, and that will potentially put the riders in a real dilemma in terms of what tyre they're going to start this Grand Prix from.
You've just cheered up Honda and Yamaha fans, haven't you, Lewis, after what we saw in the sprint yesterday, where the Japanese manufacturers, let's be brutally honest, were humiliated and embarrassed, weren't they? There were no dramas, though, for this man, former LCR Honda rider Alex Marquez, who ever since he first threw a leg over that Ducati GP22 in Valencia last November has been loving life. Can he make it the dream double we mentioned in the build-up? 5th Tissot sprint winner of the season. 8th from 17th a couple of years ago on the Honda, 17th here last year. He was a couple of times on the podium here back in his Moto3 days, 2013 and 2014, the year that he won the Moto3 World Championship. But he said he was sleeping in the early part of yesterday's sprint, but he made light work of some riders that aren't easy to overtake in MotoGP. This was on the second lap of the sprint yesterday. He'd already come through Jorge Martin and Marco Bezzecchi, found his way through on Jack Miller into Stowe, and then despite a late charge, relentless pressure coming from Bezzecchi, Alex Marquez was able to hold on and take the glory for Gresini Ducati. We saw him on the podium in the rain conditions in the feature race in Argentina. That box ticked yesterday in the wet sprint, a sprint win for him. That box ticked. I guess now, Lewis, it's just a question of can he repeat those kind of performances in the dry, because he's one of several riders, you think of Maverick Vinales as well, without any question in the first 8 Grand Prix this year. The speed has been there, but there's been a few unforced errors, a few mistakes, bad luck as well, but we're just waiting for Alex to shine in a dry race as well.
Mugello is the big example that just leaps to the front of our minds, isn't it, where he set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix there and looked as if he had the pace to be on the podium, was running third in that Grand Prix before he crashed out of it. So Alex Marquez still waiting for that first dry MotoGP podium of the season. Today might well be his best opportunity, but of course, as we've mentioned, there's no guarantee that it is going to remain dry. Jorge Martin makes his way into the Pramac box for the British Grand Prix, which gets underway in just over half an hour's time. Martin yesterday, not the greatest of sprints, but he did gain a few points on Pecco Bagnaia. 6th in the end for the Martinator, so 4 points gained on the reigning world champion. But for Jorge Martin, not able to match his teammate, who was always so good in those mixed conditions. Zarco came through to 4th, Martin into 6th, and Jorge Martin will have to once again play catch-up today from the grid. He'll have to come through from that second run.
Pecco Bagnaia had his troubles at the British Grand Prix here 1 year ago. Out of sorts and off the pace on Friday. Struggled on Saturday, and then he recovered and regrouped, as he so often does, to take what he described as a beautiful British Grand Prix victory. Is there more beauty beckoning then for our reigning world champion? Very, very strange, wasn't it, to see him so off the pace, so slow in the sprint yesterday. If you'd have said pre-sprint, having been second in the atrocious wet conditions in FP2 and then fourth on the grid in that damp, or more than damp, Q2 session. If you'd have said that Bagnaia would take the checkered flag in the sprint without a mistake, without a run-off anywhere, 14th, 25.5 seconds back, you'd have been laughed out of the paddock, but that was the outcome. As you mentioned, by far his poorest sprint of the season so far. And what lies in store then for the 8 times world champion Marc Marquez? Today is day number, is it 651 since his last Sunday success? You're not going to be wanting to be parting with too much of your hard-earned to see him ending that long barren run here this afternoon as the Honda woes continue. And you do get the impression, Lewis, that he's kicked big time into self-preservation mode. He said yesterday, look, I broke 3 bones in the first 6 races. I've got to reevaluate, reassess how I approach these races. And after what we saw yesterday, wet or dry this afternoon, you also get the impression that Marc's out there testing as much as racing.
He must feel as if this year alone has been 651 days long, to be honest. So difficult it has been. That German Grand Prix weekend certainly changed something, didn't it, for Marc Marquez? Those 5 crashes at a Grand Prix weekend where he must have thought he was just going to do what he always does, which is turn up at the Sachsenring and win. But unfortunately, crash after crash after crash, the combination of which obviously hurt him pretty badly, a combination of rib injuries, ankle injuries as well. He does still have some pain this weekend in his right abductor, which has seen him rather awkwardly hobbling onto the bike when he gets on it, ready to head out of the pit lane. So Marc Marquez not exactly fully fit. And of course, he's now got to the point where he's going to ride to the limit of the bike rather than past it. And if the limit of that bike is 18th place, as it was yesterday, then that's where he's going to finish. Fabio Quartararo then in uncharted territory. The 2021 British Grand Prix winner has to start for the first time in his MotoGP career from the very back of the grid.
Worst MotoGP qualifying performance of Quartararo's career, starting in 22nd place, 6 times in the opening 9 Grand Prix. He's going to start outside of the top 10. Another mountain to climb, you feel, for the 24-year-old Frenchman. One young man who's ducked under the radar a little bit this weekend is Enea Bastianini. Highly confident he'd be right in the mix for the top 5 here this weekend, and then he said pre-weekend he set a target of being back in the podium fight from the Red Bull Ring onwards. But as you mentioned, it's been tough going so far here for Bastianini. Found himself 13th at the end of that 10-lap sprint yesterday, just about a second clear of Pecco Bagnaia. He also hit some problems. He wasn't really able to elaborate, or he wasn't willing to elaborate really, much more than saying he had a small issue with the front. No specific cause given, but he just said, I couldn't brake how I wanted, and that's why the beast came over in a rather timid 13th, some 24 seconds back of Alex Marquez at the front.
The sprint yesterday, we thought were going to be conditions that really suited Johann Zarco, who came through in the end to a relatively promising 4th place. But we've so often seen in wet or mixed conditions, Johann Zarco just gets stronger and stronger as the action unfolds. To be fair, that was the case yesterday, but given that the sprint only took place over 10 laps, Johann Zarco was only able to get as high as 4th place, bouncing back to a certain extent from his first scoreless weekend of the season at the Dutch TT at Assen last time around. He did say himself, didn't he, after the sprint yesterday, those were the perfect conditions, I thought, to potentially challenge for victory. Unfortunately, Zarco unable to do that. He's racing in many respects for his MotoGP future. It sounds as if you listen to the paddock whispers, that Johann Zarco's place at Prima Pramac Racing next year is coming under threat, with some potential musical chairs around their satellite teams, both Moody VR46 and Prima Pramac Racing, which might see Malcolm Bezzecchi move into the Pramac squad. But Johann Zarco potentially now linked with a switch to LCR Honda for next season, and he didn't exactly dispel those rumours when he was asked about it yesterday.
No, he didn't. He looks like he might be one of the odd one out at Ducati as they instigate a reshuffle over the coming weeks. Looks like, having been cut adrift at Yamaha, Morbidelli will be moving into Ducati, either at Mooney VR46 or at Pramac. What will that mean for Marco Bezzecchi, and in particular for Frenchman Johann Zarco, who was on pole position, of course, here 1 year ago, led the first 4 laps of that British Grand Prix before he crashed out. He says still got plenty to offer, feels that he's still more than fast enough and more than capable of being at the top in the MotoGP World Championship, kind of dismissed out of hand, entertaining a World Superbike move right now. So why would I, when I'm still so strong in MotoGP? And to be fair to him, he's fourth in the World Championship, level on points with Brad Binder, so he feels like, no surprise, that he deserves to stay at Ducati. It's the place he wants to be for obvious reasons. I mean, who doesn't want to be on a Ducati right now in MotoGP? I suppose the big question, Lewis, for me with Johann Zarco is, can he break his normal post-summer break blues? Because the last 2 seasons he scored 4 podiums pre-summer break and then none after the restart in 2021 and 2022, and you just fear that whatever happens over the coming weeks, it's going to be too little too late to keep him on a Desmond Sadici next year.
He kind of set the tone post-summer break last year, didn't he, when he was on pole position for this Grand Prix and then crashed out of the lead. So Johann Zarco looking to break that trend. Jack Miller, who's already provided plenty of entertainment in both dry and wet this weekend. On Friday we saw the viral speedway moment into the Vale chicane, and this morning he absolutely destroyed a wet Michelin rear tyre with a burnout, leaving the practice starts. But look at that rain that is starting to fall. That is serious rain that's coming down. Light rain in the air. That could change the face of this Grand Prix, which is just under half an hour away.
Difficult British Grand Prix so far, to say the least, for the factory Yamaha team, in particular Fabio Quartararo, 22nd on the grid, 21st. He took the checker flag in the very tricky conditions in the Tissot sprint yesterday. There are hopes of an improvement, I'm sure, this afternoon. Let's hear the thoughts of Yamaha boss Lynn Jarvis, who's been kind enough to join Simon. Down to you guys.
Yes, Lynn, before we head to the grid, really would like your thoughts. I noticed you've got the new aero on Fabio's bike. I can only imagine you're trying to gather data, because it's going to be tough to come through from the grid position you're in. Can you give us your thoughts going into the race?
Yeah, obviously a really difficult weekend for us, more difficult than we expected, and it's quite extraordinary to see Fabio start from P22 on the grid at Silverstone. It's unheard of. Yesterday was a really difficult race. Today, let's see, because it's going to rain. Indeed, we've got the new aero package on Fabio's bike, because anyway, it's already, we tested it here on the Friday and it worked quite well. But yesterday they decided not to use it. But right now, if you're P22, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain by gaining as much track time experience as possible. It'll be a tough race for us to make a result, because being so far back. But it's a rain race, most likely. Let's see. And it could even be a flag to flag if it doesn't rain before the start. So it could be a very chaotic race.
Lynn, thank you for your time as always.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Lynn Jarvis. Always good to hear his thoughts and observations on the live. And he makes a great point, doesn't he? When you qualify 22nd in MotoGP, you really don't have anything to lose. So maybe Yamaha will throw in a bit of an experimental setting, a radical setup, just to try and find some development direction moving forward into the latter part of 2023, and certainly with one eye on 2024, because this slump for the Japanese manufacturer just cannot go on, can it? I mean, like Lynn just said, unthinkable, extraordinary to come to Silverstone, a track where Yamaha has excelled so much in previous years, a track where Fabio Quartararo won here 2 years ago. To think that he's now, as he mentioned yesterday, we can forget fighting for world championships. We've got it all on to fight for points.
Certainly have. As we take a look at the slick tyre allocation for this weekend, which tyres are we going to see? Are we going to see both slicks and wets in this British Grand Prix? Asymmetric rear tyre options, symmetrical front tyre options. That hard front tyre slightly softer than what we saw 1 year ago. And of course the soft and medium Michelin wet. Of course we saw the medium wet tyres in the sprint yesterday. Will we see any of them as we get an aerial shot of this spectacular Silverstone circuit, which has produced plenty of unpredictability over the years in MotoGP? Our last 8 Grand Prix at this circuit have produced 8 different winners. And if we get a winner from the front row of the grid today, we'll make it 9. 46 years since the first British Grand Prix at this magnificent historic venue back in 1977. The first British Grand Prix to take part on the UK mainland. It did move to Donington, did it for a period of time in 1987, but we came back here in 2010. And we have had some fantastic races, some drama down the years. Yeah, as Lewis mentioned, Lorenzo, Marquez, Rossi, Vinales, Dovizioso, Rins, Quartararo, Bagnaia.
those 8 different winners in our last 8 visits here. Let's go down, and as we mentioned, there was plenty of promise for the Red Bull Catering Factory Racing team at Silverstone yesterday. Perhaps didn't deliver the results they were hoping for in that Tissot sprint. Miller 7th, Binder in 9th place, so they did collect points, this pair of them, but this is a different ball game, a different challenge over the full race distance of 20 laps with rain threatening as well. Let's get some thoughts from their team manager Francesco Guidotti, who's with Simon.
He is. Francesco, you guys, your riders have looked really good this weekend, your bike as well, but the conditions yesterday threw a spanner in the works, like it wasn't full dry or full wet. Please give us your thoughts.
Yeah, we had a very good Friday. Both of them directly to Q2 was important for us. And Saturday morning on the full wet, we were pretty good. Not perfect, but the confidence was there. The feeling was pretty good. So we were confident that also during the race could be a good race. But unfortunately, with a low level of grip because of the film of water. No water, really. There's this film of water. We didn't give the right setup to the guy to perform. So there was a missing of the lack of acceleration out of the corners, and also the front feeling on braking wasn't the best. And yeah, they had a good start, but yeah, the rhythm was not good enough to stay on the leading group.
And today?
We'll see. Now it's drizzling, so yeah, hopefully will be full dry. We have some information from Friday. Yeah, let's see.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Francesco Guidotti. If it is half and half, it is mixed conditions. Brad Binder and Jack Miller will fancy it. Those guys have proven in the past, haven't they, that, well, the Red Bull Ring in Austria a couple of years ago, when Brad Binder decided to just roll the dice and gamble when the heavens opened in the Styrian Mountains, and he stayed out on slick tyres. What a decision that proved to be, as well, as he took a victory for KTM in their own backyard. It's, as we mentioned, all eyes on the skies. Myself and Lewis peek out of our commentary box window here. We're just overlooking the sort of back end of the grid. In fact, straight out of our commentary box window, we can see directly across to Fabio Quartararo in 22nd place. There's our buddy, Jack Appleyard, our colleague, then grabbing a word with F1 star, McLaren driver Lando Norris. Fair to say, Lewis, Lando Norris is a massive MotoGP fan. I remember he came here a couple of years ago, proper fanboying it with Valentino Rossi, and I think he's also had a Rossi tribute helmet in the past, hasn't he, as well?
He has. He models his own crash helmet design around Valentino Rossi's iconic yellow colours. And speaking of Valentino Rossi, he'll have all eyes on pole position, which is where we find Marco Bezzecchi. Jack Miller will start second, and Alex Marquez, the sprint winner, completing your front row. Pecco Bagnaia, Augusto Fernandez and Luca Marini on the second row. That's a best ever in MotoGP for Augusto Fernandez, potentially riding for his MotoGP future. What a fine rookie season he's had. Jorge Martin will line up 7th on the grid from Maverick Vinales and Johan Zarco. Brad Binder from 10th on the grid. Of course, those KTMs super fast off the line. Frankie Morbidelli and Aleix Espargaro complete the 4th row. Aleix Espargaro was quickest on Friday, and Air Bastianini 13th ahead of Marc Marquez and the returning Pol Espargaro. How good is it to see him back in action? Miguel Oliveira in 16th place ahead of Iker Lecuona, who's in for the injured Alex Rins, who of course will be in Yamaha Blue next season. Fabio Di Gianantonio 18th on the grid from the returning Joan Mir. Ralph Fernandez 20th from Taka Nakagami. And look at that, 22nd on the grid for the 2021 British Grand Prix winner, Fabio Quartararo.
Yeah, still can't believe my eyes looking at that graphic, and I can't believe my eyes when I looked at the back of the grid out of our commentary box window to see the Monster Energy Yamaha of Fabio Quartararo plonked at the very back in 22nd place. Maverick Vinales, last 4 Sunday visits to Silverstone, and he has tasted success, hasn't he? A 2016 win for Suzuki, second in 2017, and last year on the factory Aprilia. Tried to hunt down Pecco Bagnaia, didn't he, late on. Third he was here in 2019 on the factory Yamaha. So Maverick Vinales then, as we mentioned, he's got 6 podiums here at Silverstone, a Moto3 win back in 2012. If there's going to be a day for the 28-year-old Spaniard to break his victory duck for Aprilia, well, you get a sense it might well be here. Brilliant job in that short 10-lap burst in the sprint yesterday. Never easy to come from the middle of the third row in 8th place to take a podium. That's exactly what Viñales did. He was some way back of Marquez and Bezzecchi at the checkered flag, but his weekend got off to a painful start as well, with a violent high side, horrible high side going through at turn 16 and 17 at Vale. So a bit like Bezzecchi, battered and bruised, but looking confident and fast, Lewis.
He certainly is. He goes well around this circuit, does Maverick Viñales. First time winner here in 2016, one of those 8 different winners that we referred to earlier on. Cold tyre crashes have been a bit of a feature of this weekend. It is very, very difficult to generate tyre temperature in these conditions. We just referenced Lando Norris, who is a huge MotoGP fan. His McLaren F1 teammate Oscar Piastri was here yesterday. Lando's on the grid today, and he's with Simon Craifa.
He is. Lando, we're next to a Monster Yamaha, and I heard you've been a Valentino fan for some years. Can you give us your thoughts on MotoGP in general?
I love it. I mean, we just watched Moto3, which is crazy. Some of the craziest racing I think I've ever seen in my life. So I got a lot of respect for all of these guys. You know, it's a dangerous sport, but I loved it. I got into motorbikes before I was even into 4 wheels. I loved 2 wheels before it. It's just I'm not as good on 2 as I am on 4, you know. So, but I love it. I'm here with Fabio. I'm here with Yamaha. It's crazy. These guys are nuts, but I really love it.
One other thing, you've obviously raced here. Give us your thoughts quickly on Silverstone circuit, because it's quite amazing on a bike.
It's good. It always surprises, especially the weather over the last few days. But for me, I mean, it's my home race, right? So it's by far the coolest weekend of the whole year for me. With the fans, the British fans, they normally turn up and show a lot of support for all of us. So Silverstone is one of the best circuits of the calendar for myself. It looks like it's a good one for MotoGP too. So yeah, I mean, I hope it stays on the calendar. I love coming here every single season.
Lando, thank you for your time, and enjoy the day.
I will. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Great to hear them from McLaren Formula 1 star Lando Norris. He has big passion, a big supporter of MotoGP. When he just said he's blown away by the crazy Moto3 race that preceded this MotoGP battle, he wasn't lying. Why would he? He was telling the truth. We're not going to give away anything about what happened in the 15-lap British Moto3 race, but as we remind you, watch it, and watch it several times, because it will blow your mind.
Pol Espargaro then returns to MotoGP action. What must be going through the mind, the butterflies in the stomach of Pol Espargaro? He goes from 15th on the grid today. So good to see him back after that horrible accident at the start of the year in Portimao. On the road behind him, 17th on the grid, we'll find Iker Lecuona in for the injured Alex Rins. He starts 17th, and he's with Simon.
Iker, please, can you give us your thoughts going into this race? Dry and sunny at the moment, but who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, during all the weekend we struggle a lot with this cold condition. Honestly, the Honda is quite critical in this condition, also on the wet. It's the second time I ride this weekend on dry, so it's a big challenge for sure, but I think I have a good pace to stay on the group, to stay with the other 2 Hondas, and then we will see. No, I think we can fight for the points, but the race is a different world.
Thank you, Iker. Good luck.
Thanks to Iker Lecuona. Thought he was going to be riding for Honda in the Suzuka A-Tower, which is taking place over in Japan today, but with Alex Rins continuing to be sidelined, he is deputising here for LCR Honda. So a change then to the Silverstone start and finish straight for the first time since 2011 here. We are back in the wonderful wing complex. It's been great to sample some of these state-of-the-art facilities here at Silverstone. So what it means then is what was the former turn 1 at Copse. Well, that's now turn number 9. So we are getting underway today from the International Pit Straight, the Hamilton Straight, which now means it's a short run into the high-speed flick right into turn 1, which is now Abbey.
A couple of points to make on that. The start of the Grand Prix is going to be very, very interesting, of course, as they funnel through Abbey and Farm on the way into Village and the Loop, which are 2 very tight hairpins, so it's going to be very congested into there on the first lap. And if we do have a scenario where we face flag-to-flag racing, it's a much longer pit in here. The pit lane entry is on the way into Vale Corner, so the pit lane entry line and the speed limiter will come in very early, so that will figure into the riders' thinkings. If we do get any rain before or during this British Grand Prix, it is an awful long pit lane here, longer than they had last year.
Speaking of flag to flags and flags, how big is that Union Jack which has just been unfurled on the grid here as we get towards the traditional grid ceremony, the British National Anthem and the MotoGP ceremony building up. Now then, Gresini Ducati have already tasted some success here on Silverstone so far this weekend, with Alex Marquez's brilliant performance in the tricky conditions in the sprint yesterday. Can he make it a double and win the Grand Prix for the very first time? Let's get some pre-race thoughts from his team boss, Michele Massini, who's beside him.
Yes, Michele, we knew, you and I both knew Alex had it in him to do what he did yesterday. Different conditions today, twice the distance. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a different race to manage today, and for sure our potential is to stay in the top 5. We hope that we don't come the rain at the end of the races, because we expect the rain in 20 minutes, the forecast. But so this is very important, the first lap of this race, because we have to manage also the cold temperature of the asphalt.
Michele, thank you for your time and best of luck again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Michele Massini. Not really what we wanted to hear. Potential for rain showing up on the radars in about 20 minutes' time. Well, that's going to be 7 or 8 minutes into the 20-lap British Grand Prix here. So we may well be set for a rare flag-to-flag scenario here at Silverstone. You can't believe, can you, that there's potentially rain coming, because at the moment this is about as much sunshine and clear sky as we've had since we first arrived here at Silverstone on Thursday. But there's going to be the prospect of rain, Lewis, which these teams will be well aware of. This is going to really ramp up the pressure, really ramp up the stress levels and the tension as well.
Important to think on your feet in conditions such as this. Of course, if that rain falls after the start, there's absolutely no question at this stage of riders starting on anything other than slicks. Important to be on the right tyres at the right time, but as mentioned, the long pit lane here and the time that you'd have to give up for a bike change, it would all depend on how heavy and how long the rain falls for. If it's only a short, sharp shower, the riders will surely have no choice but to just stay out there and try and brave their way through those conditions and wait for that rain to pass through. But at the moment, as you say, you wouldn't believe there was any rain on the way, but this is the British summer after all.
Yeah, we haven't seen that many sunglasses in the grandstands here at Silverstone all weekend, have we? There is the brilliant overhead shots then. Look at that Union Jack as we get set then for the grid ceremony here. The dignitaries will form up at the front of the grid. We'll hear the British national anthem, God Save the King. Unfortunately for the British fans, no home participation in this British Grand Prix, but let's not forget on this revised schedule there is big interest, real big interest, and the potential maybe for a rare home success in the British Grand Prix in Moto2. That's coming up later on this afternoon with Jake Dixon, Sam Lowes and Rory Skinner carrying the hopes of a nation in Moto2. But we'll take a pause now as we kick off the grid ceremony here. I thought they were just about to get us underway, maybe just about a minute's time as we look at those fans in the grandstands. They've had to tough it out with some very, very unforgiving weather conditions. You wouldn't really think it was summertime, would you, at times this weekend at Silverstone? It has been very, very wet. It has been very, very cold. It has been very, very windy.
Very, very British.
Yes, absolutely. It's a pretty much bog standard British summer's weekend, isn't it? Jack Miller then, with his arm around his wife Ruby. Exciting times ahead for Mr. and Mrs. Miller. Just over a month's time before they will celebrate the birth of their first child. I think Ruby's heading straight back home to Australia to begin the countdown for that life-changing moment. So we're going to pause now.
Gracious King, long live our noble King. God save the King. Send him victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save the King.
So God Save the King rings out around Silverstone. Will we hear that later on in the Moto2 race? Now then, it's been an excellent weekend so far for Marco Bezzecchi, continuing his title challenge, 27 points behind Bagnaia going into this 20-lap British Grand Prix. Can he make it a third Grand Prix victory of the season to back up Argentina and Le Mans? Let's get some pre-race thoughts of Pablo Nieto, his team boss with Simon.
He's just talking to the Pramac team manager now and bosses, and here he is. Pablo, I have to say, Marco Bezzecchi has looked wonderful in all conditions, and Luca, damn fast as well. Can you give us your thoughts going into this one?
Yeah, it's going to be really hard, like always, no? This Sunday day, race day. Also, it's going to be difficult because yesterday all day was in rain conditions, so we didn't try a lot in dry conditions, so it's going to be hard. But anyway, let's see what happens. I think the rider that can be one of the riders to win the race should be Pecco.
And tyre choice, is it easy after losing a whole day of testing yesterday to rain?
Difficult. But anyway, I think we have a very good feeling because also we saw it on Friday that Marco was really fast in dry condition. But anyways, it's completely different, you know, because when you arrive on Friday, it's different day. On Sunday, it's completely different because you had all weekend to work on that. But yesterday was completely different day, weight condition, and it's completely other day. So let's see.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks to Pablo Nieto. Thanks, Simon. We can see there Jack Miller equaling his best qualifying performance for KTM and achieving KTM's best ever qualifying here at the British Grand Prix. Now, clearly, this British Grand Prix will start with the field, we think, with about 10 minutes to go to the offer on Michelin's slick rubber. But for how long will they be on the slicks? Lewis, there's been some tyre information released by the Clermont-Ferrand factory.
Yeah, the vast majority of the riders have all gone the same route. In fact, everybody has gone for the medium rear tyre. Everybody has gone for the soft front tyre, with 3 exceptions. Those are Joan Mir and Ike Lecuona on their respective Hondas. But perhaps most interesting, Marco Bezzecchi from pole position here on screen. He has certainly at the moment gone for the medium front tyre. Everybody else is on the soft front.
Well, he certainly looks cool, he looks calm, he looks relaxed, but there'll be a few butterflies inside that stomach for Marco Bezzecchi. Already, though, this season he has been the sensation, the revelation, exceeded his own expectations. He said he expected to be fast in his second year, expected to be competitive, getting the machine upgrade to the title-winning GP22 from last season, but perhaps even surprising himself with his brilliant early season form. He already is a Grand Prix winner twice this season, runaway victor in the rain in Argentina, and a runaway victor in that French Grand Prix in Le Mans. Who will ever forget that weekend? The record race day crowd in MotoGP. And that was an absolutely cracking race. Let's hope we've got another one in store. What will the weather throw at us? We've had to cope with some different conditions all weekend. And in terms of the tyre choice that Lewis just mentioned, let's cover it all off now with Michelin Motorsport manager Piero Taramasso, who joins Simon.
Piero, it must be difficult, tyre choice. I want to know your thoughts on the tyre choices the riders have made and why.
Yeah, tyre choice is not easy. So what the choice is the more reasonable. So basically all the riders, they go with the soft front and medium rear, because for the race distance, probably 1 or 2 riders, they will try the soft on the rear, but it's very risky option. Last year was not able to do the race. This year we try a little bit to put some more laps on the rear soft, but was cold condition. We didn't put all the race distance, so it's a risky choice. But I think 1 or 2 riders, they will try the soft on the rear. The medium, for sure, will do the race distance. Maybe the first 2-3 laps, you need to warm up the tire, and then the performance is good, the grip is good, the consistency, they can push until the end. For the front, yes, everybody is with the soft because it's the one who give to riders better feeling, better turn in for the bike.
One other thing I've been thinking, it was not dry in morning warm-up, so nobody's had dry track since Friday, and I saw the tractors out there with brushes brushing the circuit. Rain, the rubber must be gone. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the conditions are very different today compared to the Friday also the track was green, no rubber, so let's say it's a little bit a gamble, so we have to base all the thoughts about the previous data and not about the data from this weekend.
Thank you, and good luck.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Piero Taramasso. So the 3-minute board goes up at the front of the grid. A front row which features back-to-back pole setter Marco Bezzecchi, No win from pole here, though, in nearly 10 years. Marc Marquez was the last man to do it at the British Grand Prix in 2014. There has never been an independent team winner around this British Grand Prix. In our previous 11 visits, can Marco Bezzecchi